Hey, it's Andy here again. Sorry about the kind of sweaty mess that I'm in. I've just literally got back from doing my one piece of exercise for the day during this lockdown period. And I was thinking about, what I shared in the previous video and what I want to share in this next video. So I thought I'd just jump straight in and record it now while it's all fresh in my mind. In the last video I shared about the aha moment that I experienced when I first read that article about what it meant to be an introvert, what introversion was, and how that changed everything for me. All those stories that I believed about myself being shy or too quiet, overly sensitive, not outgoing enough, all that kind of stuff were placed in this new context. Beneath this banner of this word introvert, and I was able to start seeing everything through this new lens that told me, do you know what? You're not broken, you're not abnormal. Everything that you experience when it comes to enjoying and benefiting from time alone and time in low stimulating environments, as well as the flip side of that, the colossal overwhelm that you might experience in crowds and highly stimulating environments, all of that is a normal reaction. That's all okay. It's natural. There's loads of people wired up in that way, and this was massive. Do you remember when you first had this kind of aha moment, maybe around introversion or high sensitivity or something else altogether? For most people I work with, it's a really significant moment. Some kind of penny has dropped, and everything. Although you function through life, don't you? Get through the things in life. Suddenly, everything being put through that filter, through that realization, is like, okay, everything suddenly makes sense, and your life flashes before your eyes, and you think, I get it. Maybe it's a little bit dramatic, I don't know, but it wasn't far off for me. I remember where I was when I was reading that article. I sat at my desk, and I read that article once. That Carl King 10 myths about introverts. I read it again. I was like, there's something here. And then I got on Google. I was like, right, I'm in true introvert fashion, the rabbit hole was open and I was going in. I didn't need a second invite. And so I started, connecting dots together. Carl King had mentioned a book called The Introvert Advantage by Marty Olson-Laney. So I ordered that. That was a significant book for him. It arrived a few days later. I was on my way upstairs as it came through the door. I was on my way up for my morning constitutional, so I thought, yeah, I'll take it in with me. And I read about half the book that morning. It wasn't the most comfortable seat to be reading on, but it didn't really matter. This was significant stuff. My life was being revolutionised right there and then. So, yeah, I read what I did, pulled my trousers up, I guess, and did some more research. I fell onto a few blogs. One was written by someone called Susan Cain. You may well have come across her. She was a writer. She was doing research into the world of personality, and in particular, like introversion and all this stuff in the context of the post-industrial revolution. Fellow traveller. She was a bit further down the path than me. She was kind of talking about the fact she was writing a book and preparing for something called a TED Talk. And then suddenly, boom, like a year or so later, the whole world was talking about introverts, or it felt like it was. And so it was apparent that my own personal aha moment had coincided with a collective one. I guess they were very much linked. The internet was doing its job, connecting people, spreading ideas, making us feel a little less alone, and doing so all from the comfort of our own home, which, wow, perfect introvert heaven. And so all these things were like really coinciding nicely, and my own writing then began to evolve from what were kind of tentative, abstract, philosophical reflections on songwriting and being a performer and that kind of stuff, and like bin collections in car parks. I'm pretty sure I wrote articles about those kinds of things as well for some reason. But yeah, eventually I kind of summoned courage to say a few more words on my podcast. So the podcast originally started in 2009 as a way to shine a light. I'd kind of showcased independent bands and artists who I'd come across, played with, and that kind of stuff. And between songs, I'd kind of chatted a little bit more, and I started to share more about what I was learning in this world of introversion. I even wrote what felt like a pretty brave and daring post of my own on my blog about dislike of the phone, and doing that through the introvert lens. I was scared about how that one would go down with people who know me, and how who had got frustrated with me over the years for being rubbish with my phone. And it wasn't a personal attack. It was just now I know why I have such a dislike for the phone, and I have a context to put that in. And that was really, really helpful. And that's actually become one of the most popular posts on my blog. I wrote another one about reflections of struggles with like group work, and being put on the spot, when you put in a group situation, told to come up with something creative, or in a classroom, or whatever it is, and the struggles with that when you need time to reflect, time away from the stimulation to come up with your best ideas, and actually how groups are really a lot of the time those kinds of contexts are really bad for bringing the best out of introverts. And if we want to utilize introverts, then we really need to make everything a little bit more introvert friendly, so that we can fully get the most creative and the most profound things out of us. There was another one reflecting on a performance. Yeah, that was it. The challenge of being like an introverted performer. And I figured, because I'd always struggled, I used to have a love-hate relationship with gigs. And so I thought, maybe this is to do with that, like introverts, fear of public speaking, that kind of thing. But actually I surprised myself with the conclusion that I drew, which was that I love performing. And actually it's all the energy management around the performance that really takes its toll, and is really the thing that I get anxious about or get drained by. The kind of meeting people, knowing where I need to be, knowing when, like dealing with unfamiliar situations and all that kind of stuff. And actually, and it rings still true today, that when I'm on stage, I'm in my happy place, I'm comfortable, I love it. And it makes sense that so many of our favourite performers are introverts as well. Why is that? Because we're often chronic preparers, and performance is really little more than the delivery of something that we can have meticulous control over, preparing and practicing and getting right, honing whilst we're on our own, or in a low stimulating environment. And you can take that thing that you've practiced hundreds, if not thousands of times, and just repeat it and just do it again. And it doesn't really matter whether you're on stage or you're in a studio or you're in your bedroom or whatever. It's the same things that go on. And so as I was sharing more of this stuff, it really didn't take long for me to see a shift in the people reading and listening to things on my website, and signing up to my mailing list. So it went from people who knew me for my music to this kind of new and ever-growing group of people who I guess were finding me due to their own rabbit hole searches about feeling alone as introverts in an extroverted world. And so as they were doing these searches, like my articles were coming up and people were gravitating towards my website. And over time, the more popular these posts got, the bigger the divide became. And it didn't take all that long for the non-music people to outnumber the music people, which, I'll be honest, I didn't realise at the time was a bit of a problem. And a growing problem within myself, and my sense of who am I, what am I doing? And actually, like weirdly now, I realised that this was kind of the solution to another way of looking at the problem, and I'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, anyway, the aha moment of discovering you're an introvert is special, but for me, it also led to some strange dead ends and some interesting observations. I'd taken the Myers-Briggs test, and I've taken it a few times, and I always come out as an INTJ. When I first took it, I recognised aspects of myself in the descriptors, but not in the archetypes that people created. The INTJ is often portrayed as like the aloof genius or the supervillain character. When you have the things that it's like which Myers-Briggs type is which character in a film or a book or whatever. And there was definitely a disconnect between me and those depictions. And so my first thought was like, maybe, I'm discovering like who I am. Maybe I've bent myself out of shape, so I just kind of need to follow these descriptions and become what these tell me to, almost as like an instruction manual, and then I'll feel better. But obviously that didn't work. You know, I found myself asking like, oh, what should an INTJ do in this situation? But it's like, that's not what I want to do. And so this was like this weird beginning phase of, I guess, a thing that many of us fall into at this point of self-discovery, where we attach our sense of self to a search for more self, in this quite defining moment where our ego is like, it feels the validation of seeing itself reflected, and it wants to build a world upon this sense of I as a victim, or the I as a part of a special tribe, that I as a member of a small group of people that no one else truly appreciates, and so it wants to delve deeper into that sense of like, how do I become the thing that I believe I am, if that makes sense. And we see a lot of articles, memes and posts that kind of speak into this natural drive, that reinforce this with us. You know, things with titles like, 35 problems only introverts will understand, and memes that say stuff such as, you're an introvert because when you're at a party, all you can think of is what you're going to do when you get home. And don't get me wrong, like, some of these things can be quite amusing and fun to read. They can be validating, and there's real value in that, because you finally, especially as introverts in an extrovert-centric world, you're seeing finally this validation of well, it's a compassionate thing of being seen, feeling like, okay, yeah, that I recognise myself in that, and that's amazing. And this is really important to go through. And I guess it's important. We can see these things like observational comedy. Observational comedy speaks to experiences that we've had through our lives, and they become problematic when they become a point of attachment, when they become the point in and of themselves. These things that we use to both validate ourselves and also show that everybody else that I'm different to you and I'm special. And I think observational comedy is only as valuable as the place it takes us after the validation. A comedian who simply does an impression of like, I don't know, what people do when they're fueling their car, and they're like, isn't it funny that people do that? And then they stop there. That's unlikely to have any significant impact. But when they use the observations as a route into a deeper comment about humanity, about community, about the human spirit, that sort of stuff, they build connection and trust, because they're like, I see you, I recognize you as a human, I'm a human, I have that connection with you. But then they use that trust to make meaningful transformation potentially occur in the people that are watching. They say, this is what happens, and this is what could happen, and humour disarms us, and it gives us an entry into change. And so there's something really powerful about those memes and those posts. Really important tools, but how are we using them? Often when I look at the world of internet memes, all I see is this kind of entrenching of surface level identity. I know it's tempting to stop there and to say, right, this is enough. I'm going to enjoy this feeling of actually fitting into something. Recognizing something of yourself in the reflections other people have made is kind of cool, especially if you've spent your life without that. And to look at our experiences of feeling out of place in a world that values different things. We don't need more tribalism. We actually we need more compassion. We need more empathy. We need more understanding. And I was thinking, it's a really interesting moment that we have right now. Many aspects of social distancing, I guess, are not that unfamiliar, not that difficult for more introverted people to kind of cope with at one level. Right now, in the midst of this coronavirus pandemic, we're living in some ways the introvert ideal, where we literally have to stay at home to save lives and to alleviate pressure on the health system. And many people are really struggling with that, and that includes introverts. But it strikes me as an opportunity for compassion and awareness, because the drain that this is having on extroverted people's ability to create and sustain energy is not dissimilar to the drain that we as introverts might experience when we face, overstimulation and constant social contact for a sustained period of time without any downtime, without any solitude. And so the restlessness and the desperate need to get out that extreme extroverts will be feeling in quite an intense way right now, it's the same as that introverted need to retreat and to escape the crowd when we're in, that overwhelming, overstimulating situation for too long. It's the opposite, the understimulating, isolated feeling for too long. And so we can empathise with extroverts in that sense. They know how it feels. We know how it feels. Yes, the source of that feeling might be completely opposite, but the sense of detachment and disconnection from the source of our energy is the same. Aha moments about ourselves are really only as valuable as the vision they give us to truly see other people as well, people who are different from us, that experience the world in different ways. And this is not only good for humanity as a whole to do this, it's good for us as individuals. Living life outside of that victim mentality, stepping beyond that egocentric perspective that can actually eat us up inside. But this step out of ourselves can be a struggle, because the value of that aha moment is in its validation. It vindicates us as people. It tells us that we're seen. And there's something really special about that. It tells us that we're okay as we are. We're not alone. The temptation can then be to filter the world through this lens, to start defining everybody you meet. Yeah, he's like me. He's not like me. Introvert, extrovert, stay away. They're not special like me. They don't see things in the world like with the profound brilliance and sensitivity that I do. And even those who experience their own aha moment and feel like they belong to the same thing as us, we might do that weird thing that we do with popular culture. Like, you've come to this late, like bands that you knew before they became big. We find some way of sub-tribalising, don't we? Like we say, yeah, but yeah, I knew them before they were big, before they sold out and became lame. Yeah, I mean, their first album was just brilliant, but they lost it after that. This comes through with judgment of others. I've had this a few times from people, myself, people saying, there's no way you're an introvert. You'd never perform on stage or, do videos like this if you're an introvert. Oh, okay. We may fall into this trap of projecting our own preferences, our own anxieties, our own fears onto people, and say, it's because we're introverted that we think, believe, or feel a certain way, and everybody else should feel that thing as well, otherwise they don't belong to the club. But actually it's not. It's just personality, it's preferences. It's because we're human, and humans have different tastes and different goals and different values. Professor Brian Little has become really one of my go-to favourite voices on this topic, because he just smashes the doors wide open and says, if it matters to you, there isn't anything that your personality, there's nothing being an introvert can stop you from working towards, from achieving. We're malleable. Our personalities are adaptable in small doses. We can use knowledge of our temperament to effectively manage the way that we achieve our important projects and goals. Our temperament, the fact that you're an introvert is never reason enough to stop you from pursuing the things that actually matter most to you. It might mean, you have more fear to work through or something. There might be an obstacle that others might not really need to kind of work around. Might need to adjust expectations or change the pace at which we work, do it differently to other people. But where there is a will, there are ways. And we must never forget that. And we must never let the insecurities and fears of other people negatively influence the positive stories these aha moments can introduce to our lives. We must never let our own insecurities and our own fears have that negative impact on the lives of other people. So in the next video, I want to get more into these ideas, to explore the fact that if we truly want to find or discover who we are in some way, which I think a lot of this stuff is about at its heart, even if that's not the main point, we need to lose that attachment that we have to defining ourselves, to permanently labeling who we are, to say, I'm this, I'm that, I belong to this tribe and whatnot. Oh yeah, I mentioned that problem that I discovered when the people listening to and reading stuff on my website kind of shifted. I don't have time to go into that in this video, But I'm definitely going to chat about that next time because it fits what I want to sort of discuss, I think, in that. So I guess the question I'd love to just focus on as we finish here during our reflections, as we think about our own kind of aha moments in life, is what did the knowledge or the increased awareness of that aha moment make possible? Okay, yeah, I know I'm an introvert. Now what? Or even, so what? What difference does knowing that make? How am I going to use this new information as I go forward? Do I use it to make myself smaller, to define myself more tightly? Or do I grapple with it, learn from it and understand it so that I can step courageously into a new world of possibilities, so that I can really allow myself to dream, to pursue things that I thought, you know, weren't possible because of the stories that I'm telling myself about who I am. If you have any tangible thoughts on this stuff, I'd absolutely love to hear about it, either in the comments below or send me an email. You know, as I said last time, I read and respond to everything that comes my way, even if it takes me a while to get around to. I'm rubbish at processing my email inbox, despite the best of intentions. But it'd be great to hear from you and to hear what you're thinking about all this stuff and see if it's kind of landing with any kind of resonance. So I'll see you soon for the third and final video. Stay safe, stay indoors, unless you're watching this after the pandemic is finished, in which case, I don't know, do whatever you're allowed to do and whatever you would prefer to do. I don't know. I'll see you later. Bye. I'm going for a shower.